Hi, I'm Andre Faust. I'm going to introduce you to a person who truly loves his community. Don Cormier was born and raised in Barker's Point. In addition, he is a carpenter, a house builder, a contractor, and for the last 32 years, a banjo picker. 10 years ago, Don created the Facebook Barker's Point page titled As We Remember It, which as of today has over 1,000 members. Don is also the founder and creator of the Getter Boiling country and gospel show, which has performed numerous times at the Playhouse and throughout the province. The Northside Heritage Foundation has asked Don to give some short speech on early Barker's Point and some basics, which takes us up to today. And now, here is Don with his thoroughly researched story on Barker's Point.
Hello everybody, can you hear me all right? Hello Bill. They asked me to do a short speech here on the beginning of Barker's Point, and that's what I aim to do. I'm going to keep it short and simple and just stick to the facts. Look at all the nice ladies up here. Right? All smiling. Back in 1765, a loyalist from Virginia, USA, by the name of Stair Agnew, was given 1,000 acres on the Devon side of the Nashwauk River. He then bought 1,000 acres on the right side of the river, which we now is Barker's Point. He bought that from another loyalist that was there first. His name was John Anderson. He then merged the two sides of the river together to form a little settlement that he called Moncton. He built his home on the Barker's Point side, where the Fort Nashwauk Motel is right now. This house is later in the years will be known to the house that we all know, the Barker House. A loyalist. Well, one fellow said to me, "What's a loyalist?" Well, I'll tell you just quickly what a loyalist is. That's what Stair Agnew was. In the American Revolution War, when the states became the states down there, it was all British colonies along that eastern seaboard, owned by the British Empire. And then in the 1700s, the British wanted to keep taxing them. And they said, "Oh, we're over here, we're going to have our own states, form our own. We want to get away from you guys over there." So they had a war, and the British lost. Anyway, so that's how they got their independence, and they became the United States. Simple as that. Now, some of the people didn't want to stay with the United States. They wanted to live there, but they wanted to stay under the British rule. And so they become like outcasts, and they didn't feel at home. So what the British people did, said, "Going up north farther, we got more ground up there, and we'll settle you up there, and you can still live under British rule." And that's what a loyalist is. Somebody staying loyal to their country. We all got that. That's what Stair Agnew was. Now, what was Moncton? Well, Moncton consisted of mill sites, fields of vegetation, barns, a ferry service from Barker's Point to Devon, and from Barker's Point to over town. He ran these businesses and ferries up to his death in 1821. His offspring carried on for about another 50 plus years, which brings us to around roughly 1900. Now, in about 1900, the Agnew family sold the big house to a man named Anthony Barker. Now the house is known as the Barker House. From this plantation is where all the streets and all the land was sold to form Barker's Point. And it was Anthony Barker that Barker's Point was named after. Now, a year 1900, Barker's Point was starting to develop. They built the first car bridge to Devon on Charles Avenue. The CP ran the railway through to Chipman, and they spanned the train bridge over the Ram Island on to Devon. Population of Barker's Point at that time was about 100 people. The first school was built on Riverside Drive. It was built, you know where the Quick Mart is today, that will be the first school, and it's still there. People didn't know that, but no, that school is still there. It's the Quick Mart. Also about this time, William Rickard bought the whole left side of Greenwood Drive, and he started a cement block business. and dug up all that ground on that side that what you know of today called Jameson's Pit. At that time, all the sand was dug by hand and by horse and buggy. William also owned a lumber mill out at Tracy Brook. Let it be known that all of William's 6 children but one, named Elizabeth, died of flu after the First World War. William then had enough of the cement business and he wanted to sell. Now at about 1921, a man from St. John by the name of R.T. Scott, that would be Key Scott's father, he bought the business and now it's called the Scott's Concrete Works Limited. It was about this time when they also built the Women's Institute on Greenwood Drive. Scott's Concrete made most of blocks for foundations and bridges in the Fredericton area. They also dug all the sand by hand before tractors came into play about 10 years later. They dug up all the right side of Greenwood Drive, which is Scott's Pit, which later formed the Barker's Point Speedway. In early 1920s, the most dominating names in Barker's Point were the Rickards, the Hugheses, the Rices, the Hamiltons, and the Donovans. Then in 1941, they built the Barker's Point Airfield. It ran all the way up to Corbett Drive. It had only one runway. It was very busy. All the ground for this airfield back then was bought for $4,000. Fire destroyed the airfield in 1947 and left only one hangar and 5 planes. James Sturgeon, he was the main man at that airport. He continued on by giving flying lessons, renting out hangar space, and delivering airmail. Then in 1951, they built the new airport in Lincoln, and they dismantled the Barker's Point Airfield. Now Irving Oil, he bought the ground, and he had a pop field there, which also allowed room for a community skating rink. Now about late 40s, the second school was built, and the Monar bag packaging plant was built. All this brought more work. So there was more land sold to make more streets and lots. At that time, that school was built for $100,000. I think it was $75,000 for the ground and $25,000 for the building. You can't even buy a lot today for $50,000. And they built the whole school for $25,000. Marion Waters' home on Charles Avenue was the local post office, and across the street was the first gas station. It was called the White Rose, and it was run by Doug Smith. Then, Hargrove Court, Birch Crescent, and other streets were formed. All these streets were named after fallen soldiers of the First and Second World War. Cecil Carman for Carman Avenue, Arthur Eatman Avenue, Carl Waters, Waters Drive, Kenneth Corbett, Corbett Avenue, Charles Douglas, Douglas Avenue, and Justice McKay from McKay Drive. In 1947, Herb Sewell and Whit Holland opened a lumber mill at the end of McKay Drive. The Sewells were also busy with their bees. They had their bees out back. I remember kids playing that. They were all scared to get stung and all that stuff. And when I was over at Mrs. Sewell's place, I asked her the question about Ram Island. I said, there's a theory around that you own that island out there. And she confirmed it to me. She said, yes, and we have a deed to it. So for the record, she does own Ram Island. Now, still in the late 40s, many stores were starting to start up. More people were coming in. Bill Vivian's, the Davidsons, Walter O'Donnell's, and Henry Olson's. The Lions Club was built, and a large new car dealership was being established on Riverside Drive. It was called Jewett's Datsun, owned by Sandy Jewett. That car dealership started out, as Bill said, selling Dodges, because he bought them there. And then it went to Volkswagen, and then they started selling Datsuns. And now, there's a car dealership by Willie Corford called WP Auto there now. Then in the 50s, the Princess Margaret Bridge was built, along with the fire hall, the Fena Station, and the Fort Nashwauk Motel. Now in 1966, Barker's Point was incorporated to a village. Shortly after that, they built the second car bridge from Barker's Point over to Devon on Riverside Drive. Then in 1973, Barker's Point was amalgamated to Fredericton, along with Devon, Nassau, and Lower St. Mary's. All of us had our hangouts in the Point when we grew up. Ken's Mountain, Wetmore's Pond, the Bag Factory, Iodine's Pool Hall, Women's Institute, which held dances and community dinners, the Lions Club, which did the same, the schoolyard, playing cards out in the office of the old stables, the dugouts, Birch Skating Pond, the parlor down on the river on McKay Drive. You could drive your car right down in there, right by our Virgil's old mill. I had my stag party down there, now that I think about it. To mention a few. Also to mention, we had wild Halloweens in the 60s and the 70s, along with awesome DT days and Barker's Point parades. The 60s and the 70s was also a special time for square dancing, young and old. Mostly all enjoyed dancing to the collar of Jim Burns. All us young daredevils had fun burning the rubber up on the Slough Road, probably with a car we bought from Pat Ford. Then in 1984, Scott sold the remaining garages and pit to Eric Dunphy, Eric Stone and Landscape Limited. Then on to year 2000. To recognize the latest major development was when the Bag Factory was torn down and almost 100 apartments and townhouses were built by Kenny Cormier. Not much has changed in the Point since Kenny's project, but I did hear rumors that they may be building a subdivision in the ball field. And to think, look at this, and to think of all the nicknames. You know, we all had nicknames in Barker's Point. I never knew a place that had so many nicknames. And a few stick out. Crash, Festus, Zeke, Mole, Iodine, and Oil Can. Like, huh? Who comes up with all this stuff? Anyway, we certainly were unique, I'll tell you that. And then we had our slang. Well, there's lots of slang slurs, as we used to say, but one always stood out, and it was called Gitter Boiler. And I got a lot of mileage out of it. That was by Julio, which is the name of Roger Davison from Devon, come up with that. And that seemed to stick more than any of the others. And it's been a staple of the Point ever since. You know, for a small town, we had many things. We had a fire hall, 2 trailer parks, O'Donnell's, Pine Grove, 4 car dealerships, St. Croix Auto, Jewett Stetson, Pat Thorpe's, WP Auto, Wetmore's landscaping business, 3 gas stations, the Fina, Hunter Shell, and the White Rose, Sewell's Lumber Mill, a gravel pit, Louis Hughes, a senior's home, a plumbing business, Leachman, a swimming pool, 2 hairdressers, Ed McCarthy and Haley Cameron, a dairy bar, an airport, a pulp field, many diners and stores, Quickmart, Iodines, Pat and Jack's, Riverside Diner, Jewett's Diner, Riverside Drive, Henry Olson's, the Community Kitchen, Walter O'Donnell's, Bill Vivian's and the Davidsons, a bag factory, 2 concrete companies, Rickards and Scott's, Amble Apartments, Hargrove, Wilson's, Cormier's and the Dumphries, 2 churches, Corbett Drive Wesleyan Church and the Greenwood Drive Baptist Church, a railway, 2 meat markets, Pat and Rickards and Len Davidson's, a ball field that sported many great ball teams, and a great thanks to Bob Hoyle, who gave so much of his time to train the young ones. A Ben's bakery business, a woman's institute, 2 welding shops, Dick Boudreau and Neil Hillman, 4 bridges, Union Street, Charles Avenue, Train Bridge, and the Princess Margaret Bridge, a scrapyard, Abe Levine's, a motel, Fort Nashua, a Lions Club, a pool hall, Iodines, where all us fellas would all go and go out back and throw nickels up against the wall with old art sandwich. A boxer, Bud Hargrove. Our own Speedway. Service shops, Lagland, Service Center, Auto Pride, and Dumpy's Fina. Cabinet business, Bill Curtis. Our own greenhouses, run by old Ernie Rickard. Lots of talent, Cormier step dancers, singers, musicians, and even a banjo player. Thanks to Tom and Nancy Donovan and Irene Jewett for their ongoing support in the music scene. Our Bob Dumpy skiers, a community skating rink that harbored our own hockey star, Danny Grant. We even had our own mountain, Ken's Mountain. One fellow said to me one time, he said, well, where did it go? I said, I don't know, I didn't dig it. Anyway, but it's still there, because in the late 80s, they tore that down to make a bid for the Barker's Point bypass. So every time that you drive down that road, you can't say you're not on top of that mountain. But best of all is we have a whole lot of great people. I think we did pretty good for a small town. Huh? What do you think?
Good.
I got a story here from Dave Bruce. The BP flats. They said, well, what's the BP flats? We don't have flats. Yes, we have flats. If you go up Greenwood Drive, you go to the second set of tracks, and you go down that long hill, and it's down to a flat down there. And on the right, as you're down, there was a pond there behind Burt's. They call that the Burt's Skating Pond. Back in the 40s and 50s, that was their skating rink. Now, down on those flats, there was a big knoll where they built some houses and barns to keep them out of the water. And in the late 40s, they hauled them houses and stuff up on Greenwood Drive. Now, that little story that Dave Bruce gave me, I want to share with you. Look at here with me. Well, Len Davison had a meat shop up on the corner of Greenwood and Neatman. Well, Len Davison was supposed to go down there and pick up a cow to butcher. So he goes down. Lawrence ain't there, but his second wife, Mary, is there. And he said, I need to pick up a cow for Lawrence, the butcher. And so Mary said, yes, I know, it's the Bacchus cow, meaning the one at the very other side, at the back. He thought she said the black cow. Well, but he went down and he took their best milking cow. And he brought it up to his meat shop on Greenwood Drive, and he butchered their best cow. That Lawrence came home, he wasn't happy. I thought I wanted to share that. That's a true story. And that, my friends, pretty much takes us up to today. I want to thank all of you for asking me to speak about a place that's so dear to me. And thank you, and get her boiled. Fred is my friend.
I'd like to thank you for that wonderful information.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Names I recognize.
Hello, is that right? What do you got there? Oh, you giving that to me?